So here we have Qatar that's a mediator, along with Egypt, on the release of the hostages when Qatar paid for the hostages, when Qatar is advising Hamas, when Qatar is providing safe haven to some of Hamas's leaders who are negotiating and who ordered the strike on the bus in Jerusalem. So Netanyahu's sitting there and said, I'm not playing games anymore. What the hell's going on here? So they strike them. Notice it's not striking Qatar. That's not the intent. It's doing a pinpoint hit because the leadership that's in Qatar was all meeting in the same place at the same time. And nobody's better at this than Israel. And Israel's been doing this for half a century as a way to defend itself. These aren't one-offs. This is part of their national security doctrine on how to limit the number of civilian casualties but take out the leadership. The reports coming back today are that many of those leaders may have gotten away. So when we tipped off the Qataris, did they help the leadership get out? I'm certain they did. So why did we do that? Because they're our friends? Because they're our allies? They're our friends and allies? Oh yes, I think the phrase was they're courageous in negotiating for the release of the other hostages. Now I want you to think of that. They're funding Hamas, which means they funded October 7, 2023. Al Jazeera is their state-run media outlet. Now it's in Arabic, so people who speak English can't really tell what they're saying all the time. They are 100% for Hamas, 100% for keeping the hostages, 100% for terrorism, and this is the official mouthpiece, the state mouthpiece of the monarchy in Qatar. That's sitememory.org I tell you about, memri.org. Keep checking it out. They're doing fantastic work as I speak. So here we have Qatar that's a mediator, along with Egypt, on the release of the hostages when Qatar paid for the hostages. When Qatar is advising Hamas, when Qatar is providing safe haven to some of Hamas's leaders who are negotiating and who ordered the strike on the bus in Jerusalem. So Netanyahu's sitting there and said, I'm not playing games anymore. What the hell's going on here? So they strike them. And we get the most preposterous responses imaginable. You see, because we have to turn ourselves into a pretzel in order to make any sense of this. Like, wait a minute. It's a country that had a role in 9/11. It's a country that is funding the Marxist, Islamist, fusionist revolution in our own country and destroying our best colleges and universities. This is a country that's funding these radical Islamist front groups in our country. This is a country, didn't add, but I might add, that is allied with the Taliban, which is responsible for the murder of how many American soldiers. This is a country that is aligned with the Muslim Brotherhood, Islamic Jihad, obviously Hamas. This is a country that was once denounced by Saudi Arabia as a terrorist rat's nest. A country that in 2017 was denounced by President Trump, that they have to stop with the support of terrorism. It is a country that is not our friend. I don't care how many sports teams they buy. I don't care how many sports leagues they host. I don't care how many of our businesses they buy. I don't care how many of our businessmen have profited from Qatar subsidizing them or giving them loans or taking their bad loans. I don't care. They've got money spread from politician to politician, Republicans and Democrats, special interests, former Republicans and Democrats who are now just hanging around Washington as the worst kind of grifters. They have bought them all. They bought media outlets, directly and indirectly with trips, very well-paid, expensive trips to their country. Academia, media, politicians. Is this why they're our allies? So I'm talking to you, the American people. You get nothing from Qatar. Nothing. And what about the 9/11 families? How come they're not in the conversation? How come the media aren't interviewing any of them about Qatar and KSM and their role? How come? Why is that? Oh, and the sovereignty of Qatar. Have you ever heard so much bullshit in your life? Sovereignty of Qatar. Now, what would the United States do? What would the United States do if tomorrow, what would we in the United States do if Qatar had been funding terrorism against our country? Well, wait a minute, it is. Well, let me try a different analogy. What would we do? What would we do if Qatar was protecting drug kingpins who were involved in terrorism, and they came into Washington, D.C. with our National Guardsmen there and everybody else, and they got on a bus in the morning during rush hour with automatic machine guns and slaughtered American citizens on that bus? What would our response be if these terrorists were in Qatar? Well, we can't violate Qatar's sovereignty. Would that be our response? Would that be our response, Mr. Producer? We can't violate Qatar's sovereignty? No, I don't think so. I mean, we did violate Afghanistan's sovereignty, didn't we? When we went after Al-Qaeda. I already talked about Pakistan's sovereignty. The president talks about hitting drug cartels in Mexico. That's a sovereign country. The question is not being asked by the politicians and the media. Why is Qatar permitted to provide a safe haven to these leaders of Hamas? Why is that? And why aren't they being condemned? And why aren't they being forced to turn them over? That's the question. That's the issue. And what's the answer? Nobody's asking, so we don't know the answer. I think everybody should be asked that. The President, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, the Vice President of the United States. I really do. I think the Democrat leadership in Congress, they should all be asked these questions as well, but they're not. But they should be. They should all be asked these questions, but they're not.
For more, sign up for Levin TV.